ยินดีต้อนรับนะคะแขกผู้มีเกียรติทุกท่านกลับเข้าสู่การสัมมนาในช่วงบ่ายกันนะคะในช่วงต่อไปค่ะเราจะต่อยอดจากภาพรวมนะคะเชิงนโยบายและทิศทางของตลาดในช่วงเช้านะคะมาสู่มุมมองด้านเทคนิคและการปฏิบัติจริงกันบ้างนะคะค่ะสำหรับเซสชั่นแรกในช่วงบ่ายนี้ค่ะขออนุญาตต้อนรับ Prof Shunsuke Managi นะคะจาก aiESG ค่ะซึ่งจะมานำเสนอผลการวิจัยนะคะการใช้เทคโนโลยี AI วิเคราะห์ข้อมูลการให้ความสำคัญกับปัจจัยด้าน ESG ของบริษัทในกลุ่มเซ็ตร้อยนะคะในหัวข้อ Beyond ESG Reports Deep AI Research of ESG Practices in Set 100 Companies ค่ะขอเรียนเชิญProfessor Shunsuke ค่ะขอเสียงปรบมือค่ะ
Hello. Thanks for inviting me to talk here. So, I'm Shunsuke Managi from Japan. I'm the president of the corporate called aiESG. This stands for the mixture of the artificial intelligence with ESG.I'm also the distinguished professor at the Kyushu University in Japan. So we are the academics-oriented corporate utilizing the technique for our own AI to generate the better understanding for the sustainability for the corporate. Should I hold? All right. That's okay. It seems better. So before 3 years ago, our main work was more for the public. Right now, we do work with private corporate a lot, almost always. But before that, we are working with the United Nations to provide many evidence.for Beyond GDP, which we often publish with United Nations Environmental Program and also the UNESCO UN Habitat. We create our new matrix called the natural capital in addition to the human capital others. And we are providing the evidence to the many governments, including the Thai government, including many other East Asian countries, to provide what's the value for the society, the country are creating it. And now we are facing with more demand from the private company side to understand what's going on the new activity to provide the evidence to the societies. So we created our corporate called the aiESG to do better analytics than what the company are doing for the decades. So usually when people are analyzing how corporate is performing to the society, for example, if the companies are emitting the 10 gigaton of the carbon emissions, how good they are is always compared to their competitors in the same industries. But by doing that, often the evaluator tend to check with a qualitative understanding and also check from his and her own experience. So, but now, given the era for this current AI, artificial intelligence, we find that we should do much more to understand about the data, and even without data, we should understand better from the science.So spending 2 years to understand the whole sustainability matrix, what we did is following. We go through all academic journal articles for any country's evidence to understand what is right and what is scientifically strong and what is unclear about the evidence, so that we go through all the empirical evidence about the climate change and the human rights and air pollution and many others. And then we are the first group to develop our own generative AI focusing on sustainability. After we develop that, we go through all the newspaper article for any major nation language, covering any country in the world. Also checking any kind of the new websites such as Wikipedia and others. To create the database with system to understand how the one evidence or one project that each corporate are doing is relatively good or not compared to their competitors. So that's why we did it. And then we keep publishing on the academic journal article, which is known in the field for the finance and climate science and also the human rights and many others. So we create a bunch of evidence to show our technique on the generative AI focusing on sustainability to be good. And then we keep showing that how that analytics will be more science-driven. Luckily, we got the prize for the Google for Startup prize, so we could utilize the Google Cloud for 2 years for almost for free. And then we create our own structure to understand how new evidence that each corporate emission is doing fine or not, so that we can judge whether the one industry is relatively good compared to the different industry, or even within the same industry, one corporate is doing good compared to the others. So suppose we say international trade is good. Trade is good in the sense of the particular industries. Sometimes trade is good for economy, but bad for the environment. So sometimes we need those evidence. So given those evidence, we can find how that sentence company are saying is good or not. So using that system, we can analyze how corporate producing the evidence is clear enough or not by seeing from just a number. So usually, if it's carbon emissions, we can check by the number very easily. But suppose the issue for the gender or equality or human right, people say it's not clear evidence or it's not being the number. But now even the qualitative evidence, we can make it to the numerical value so that we can provide the evidence. And basically what we are doing is we are trying to understand how each activity in the company are good or not, but in what sense. So none of the corporate activity cannot be zero risk. Even in the very safe country, suppose in Japan for the construction industry, the risk for the human right cannot be zero, because we always have injury instead of death, but that can be counted as risk to the company or societies. So we calculate those associated risks with supply chain with the corporate analytics. Using our own systems, we say we can replicate what the company are saying to be almost identical from what we produce to the actual text in the corporate report. And our accuracy for the corporate is saying is almost 95%. So in any language, for the covering the more than 150 countries language, we can cover whatever they are saying to be replicable. We apply with the help of Thai bond market associations to the 100 corporate analytics in here for the past 3 years. We got the document more than 800 reports, and getting the Thai language report as well as English language report, covering both of the annual report and also the sustainability report. So SR means the sustainability report, and the AR means the annual report. So we cover both of the report for analyzing how they are doing good or not. So the current goodness for the AI is we can make it accurate simply because we have more parameters than we used to be. In our models, we have 520 million parameters to estimate what the corporate would be saying it. In the past, more than 10 years ago, we have many textual modeling or economic modeling. Usually, we only have 10 parameters. That means using 10 keywords, we try to make it precise so that we understand better. But compared to the 10 years ago, 10 parameters, we have now more than 520 million parameters. That means we can be very precise on what the corporate would be saying it. So this means more than 90% of accuracy, even before the corporate will be saying it, we can expect what they will be saying for the actions that the utility company will be saying it, or construction company will be saying it. So for the 100 companies in Thailand, our accuracy for the corporate reporting accuracy for the English report to be 91%. And the Thai language report, we have accuracy for the 85%. So this is the standard we need to achieve over the time. So I will be showing it, what we find. So usually, this is an average value. We have every company's number with accuracy, but I'll be only showing mainly for the average for the industry or average by the keyword for that particular topic we are saying it. So in this graph, the blue one means that sustainable reporting, and the red one is implying for the annual report. As you can expect, for the annual report, which is red color, you have more emphasis on the economic meaning, of course. But what is important here is how greenhouse gas to be more important than human rights and others. So I'll be focusing a few, which is greenhouse gas, air pollution, and human rights. So usually, many countries say we do not have significant problem for the human right compared to the greenhouse gas. Because in the developed country like the Thailand, same as Japan and whatever, the legal rule will be right enough so that we don't cause a problem. But the potential risk is we need to have the work that is less injury. For example, when we did analytics for the customer from the European Union, we find significant risk associated with the human right for the agricultures. And people are surprised that we had a problem in Europe. But actually, injury in the human right was included as part of the human right, which means the risk is associated in agricultures, of course. So in this point, many people in the media often paid attention to the greenhouse gas because climate change has been the big problem for the decades in many countries. And temperature keep increasing, and we have more hurricanes, severe hurricanes, but attention better to be spread to the air pollution, human rights, and many others. So that's why we do those textual analysis, saying that we have many human rights, community, and water consumptions. So those another metrics should be get attentions. And we have checking about how the emphasis of the corporate report will be changing over the time. So this is a snapshot of the average value for the Thailand. The green color means environment. You would expect that since many corporate for the Thailand, you have more emphasis on the climate change and others over the time, you don't expect the value to be decreased. But we see that in the case of the water pollution, water consumption, it's not paid attention even though whether it should be. So that's why the value can be decreased. even though more attention to be going for the climate change. On the other hand, the blue color for the social matrix to be increased over the time. So more workload governance to be getting emphasis. So that's good point, even though it's reducing impact for the human right. And governance to be increased usually over the time, so which is good. So we can have those number by each company by company over the years. Then we show that how disclosure system will be changing over the time. And this is the average value in the report. You can see that on the red one, the orange one is economic impact, which is 100%, means that you don't have more to say, so which is good. But you have variety of the matrix change in the green color, which is environment. For example, in the mining and greenhouse gas, so you have 100%. This means that in the full report, you precisely enough to describe it. But on the other hand, the water side for the water consumption to be much less, which means that the society accepts the corporate to talk more, but people doesn't talk that much yet. So we can say those number to be decided because we are following up not just for the academic evidence, but also the newspaper media articles. So usually many stakeholders paid attention to the climate change and corporate match that demand well. So that is basically pretty much good. But corporate is actually expected to disclose more and provide evidence for the water consumption. But actually, it doesn't do that much yet. So that's why the value to be decreased. So this is same for the human right, which is much less than the water consumption. So this means that on average, corporate are better to describe human right, that is one. Second, water consumption. So those are kind of required by seeing from the stakeholder demand side. And we analyze both Thai language report and also English language report. And usually what the non-English country are doing for the writing the report is you do write in Thai language as well as I do write in Japanese, then translate to the English for the big corporate so that a stakeholder and the shareholder can read about it. But often we rely on the direct translations, and then often it's a mismatch happens. So we check, for example, in the newspaper articles, in the Indonesian case, people say burning the waste would be good for the society because it can utilize the energy. But in the English media analytics, the incineration itself is bad. So that saying for the energy viewpoint and the sustainability viewpoint, the evaluation criteria will be different in terms of the disclosing, how to disclose to the media. So that difference comes in this point. For example, in the left-hand side, we show the average value for the English report evaluation score to the Thailand language scores. So some of the index, such as mining, greenhouse, workload, and production costs, to be orange colors. Orange color means that you have those indicators to be much good evaluated in the English report, but in the Thai language report, it's not. So that means you could have say more in terms of the Thai language report, or you say too much in terms of the English report. And the opposite would be true for the green color in terms of the government risk and the safety and health, which means that you don't tell much in the English report, but you tell more in the Thai language report. So those two difference will be severe, which is not good for the stakeholder involvement. Because even though the corporate side, you wish the stakeholder catch what you want to say, but actually it's not found well. And we do those closeness analysis for the both of the two language to be precisely telling the whatever they want to say. See the right-hand side of the figure. So usually the annual report, that closeness is good. That means you tend to show the similar stuff. But in the blue color, you tend to show less closeness, which means that two language are providing the different meaning to the societies. So what we mean by society means the newspaper, media article, and others. So we are saying that those kind of analysis from the viewpoint for the report is meaningful to the stock market analysis and stakeholders. On the different analysis that we provided using the global database for many of the countries' stock market, we find 5 to 10% of the stock market volatility come from the sustainability supply chain matrix. So usually, many finance experts says only less than 1% of the stock market volatility come from the environment, social governance. So it's not that important. But the problem is that people didn't know that stakeholder supply chain was so complexly connected. So in fact, actually much more stock market evidence coming from the sustainability matrix. So remember that 5 to 10% is so huge to give an impact. So that's why reporting from the sustainability annual report in terms of the ESG will be very crucial. And corporate can be divided into the two groups. Certain companies, which is more than 197 corporate report, so they're paying more attention to the environmental side. And less than half of the group are paying more attention to the social side. So environmental group, which we consider that to be the blue color, to be on the top on the right-hand side. And orange color for the social focus one will be half of the environmental focus group. So we can say that how they are focusing on the different side. And initially, we expect that in each industry group, they put many different focus. But for example, the y-axis shows the industry name, such as energy industry or finance industry and others. Initially, we expected that energy and utility company paid more attention to the greenhouse gas, but much less attention to the governance, for example. But in our finding to the Thai corporate, basically, it doesn't matter to the industry structure. It's usually homogeneous. And many of the industry focus on the greenhouse gas and the economic factor, but not others for the different side. So then, in terms of the ESG viewpoint, economic factor has significant attention for all the category for the industries, such as utility, finance, and energies, but much less to be found on the environmental side, which is conventional. So this is not surprising. But then, when we are clustering for the different viewpoint for the key finding, what is important or not, we find relatively more the healthcare to be less focused on the social and more environmental focus for the real estate. So those industry-wise cluster can be found. So then we're gonna show the companies, especially the country structure compared to the other countries' evidence. So this figure is complex enough, so I'm gonna show the bigger picture for the 3 countries on average. First, I'm going to show the average result for the Thai corporate. So in this figure, what is showing is a graph. The angle is showing to the inside means negatives. And the graph showing to the outside to be positive, which means for the green one for the domestic job creations and the orange one for the government risk. So they are moving outside. That means the corporate average is better than the average industry in the world. So this is true for the mining consumption too. So the performance of the corporate is good in that sense. But the opposite is true for the domestic reflex effect. That means the supply chain impact of the economy and also the safety and health and air pollution will be less than average. Okay? So that means Thai corporate putting less impact to those air pollutions, but putting more impact to the job creations. This is comparable to the China and Japan. So this is the average result for the Chinese corporate. So I'll be giving the example to say how it's different. So in the Chinese corporate, the economic ripple effect to be much bigger to the outside, meaning that they focus too much on the economy side, but safety, health, and human rights and communities involvement, they are much less. So this is a case for the China. And this is a case for Japan as comparisons. The Japan provided more focus for the job creation and the work environment, but less for the governance risk. So in each country level, there are some difference. Same as if we provide evidence for the industry group in Thailand, we can show they are different. So here's the policy suggestion that we can use, what we can use using these kind of systems. So this time we work with the Thai Bond Market Association to provide what to be crucial to understand from the pure numerical metrics using the quantitative analysis. So we are able to say, regardless of the different language, for Thai language or English language, we can purely evaluate how corporates are doing much to the demand the society requested. And not just for the greenhouse gas or conventional job creation or community involvement, other side of the air pollution, human rights can be evaluated in the similar manners. So this is purely quantitative and purely non-subjective, so that non-biased opinion can be involved, which is good. So then, supposedly, the country or the group requested the bond creations. The judgment can be clear, so that no involvement from the human side biased opinion, which is good. Then we can find the mismatch for the corporate requested to the public demand requested. Of course, sometimes media can be biased because maybe they should see the evidence that air pollution is less important than the industry think, but in the same time, the public disclosure and the involvement to the community involvement to be mostly important. So that's why this kind of technique can be useful to the futures. And given the current conservative opinion about the sustainability backlash, maybe we need to request those pure quantitative analysis from the non-subjective opinion to be important. So I'm going to show in this graph how each corporate can be analyzed. So in the green color shows the greenhouse gas evaluation techniques. And certain countries such as Gulf and some other company evaluated very high, so which is top 5 companies in the report. And the blue one shows work environmental scores. So this is again the top 5 companies in Thailand, such as Hana and others. And this pink color shows a government risk, where the finance company to be the top because they are good in the governance for the past record. And then the orange color shows the economic ripple effect, where the mega and other was included. So these results show the evidence from the given limited page of the company's report, how well they describe as an efficiency viewpoint, not the direct impact to the overall society's impact. So then we can see for the non-top 5 companies, they can evaluate much better, or for the top countries, how they are good or not, to be very clear. So some of them are very good because they show the scope 1, 2, 3 in the horizontal way, but sometimes they are good in the greenhouse gas, but not good in the other viewpoint. This is my final slide. So key summary viewpoint. First is a greenhouse gas to be evaluated very well in the Thailand, and hopefully the other metrics such as human rights and other to be coming, so that attention should be much better. And we need to have bilingual consistency always, otherwise the communication to be not flow well. So hopefully this technique can be utilized in the future for the to reduce potential risk associated with the disclosure system. So hopefully work for more for the community from your side in the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you for the presentation, Professor Shunsuke Managi. ก่อนอื่นนะคะขอขอบคุณทาง CMDF ที่ให้ทุนสนับสนุนงานวิจัยชิ้นนี้ซึ่งทาง ThaiBMA โดยฝ่ายวิจัยและวิทยาสัมพันธ์ได้เข้ามามีส่วนร่วมในการศึกษาซึ่งมีวัตถุประสงค์หลักเพื่อวิเคราะห์และประเมินการเปิดเผยข้อมูล ESG ของบริษัทจดทะเบียนเซ็ตร้อยว่าครอบคลุมประเด็นอะไรมากน้อยแค่ไหนเมื่อเทียบกับต่างประเทศมีความแตกต่างกันในแต่ละอุตสาหกรรมหรือไม่และมีการเปิดเผยข้อมูลเป็นอย่างไรบ้างนะคะโดยจุดเด่นสำคัญของงานวิจัยนี้ก็คือการนำเทคโนโลยีปัญญาประดิษฐ์ด้านภาษา Natural Language Processing หรือ NPL นะคะประเภท Transformer ซึ่งเป็นกรอบการวิเคราะห์ที่เข้าใจความหมายของคำตามบริบทได้ดีโดยใช้ทฤษฎี Zero Shot Learning ที่สามารถเข้าใจทั้ง 13 ประเด็นในบริบทของ ESG ได้โดยไม่ต้องใช้ข้อมูลของภาษาไทยในการเทรนโมเดลนี้นะคะภายใต้โมเดล Text Match Pre-trained Transformer หรือ TMPT ที่ Professor ชุนมีการเทรนโมเดลนี้โดยใช้ข้อมูลของประเทศต่างๆมาก่อนแล้วทำให้โมเดลนี้สามารถวิเคราะห์ข้อมูลขนาดใหญ่ของการเปิดเผยข้อมูล ESG ได้อย่างเป็นระบบลดข้อจำกัดของการวิเคราะห์แบบเดิมทำให้ผลการศึกษามีความน่าเชื่อถือสูงผลการวิจัยสะท้อนให้เห็นว่าบริษัทเซ็ตร้อยของไทยยังคงให้น้ำหนักกับมิติด้านเศรษฐกิจเป็นหลักโดยเฉพาะเรื่องผลประกอบการและต้นทุนทางธุรกิจขณะที่ประเด็นด้านสิ่งแวดล้อมและสังคมแม้จะได้รับความสนใจเพิ่มขึ้นแต่ยังไม่ได้ถูกบูรณาการเข้าไปในรายงานทางการเงินหลักอย่างเต็มรูปแบบการเปิดเผยข้อมูล ESG ของไทยโดยรวมอยู่ในระดับที่ใกล้เคียงกับประเทศจีนอินโดนีเซียและมาเลเซียผลการวิจัยยังพบว่าการเปิดเผยข้อมูลด้านสิทธิมนุษยชนยังอยู่ในระดับต่ำมากในทุกอุตสาหกรรมการรายงานในภาษาไทยและภาษาอังกฤษมีความไม่สอดคล้องกันโดยเฉพาะในประเด็นทางสังคมที่มีความละเอียดอ่อนซึ่งอาจกระทบต่อความเชื่อมั่นของนักลงทุนต่างประเทศนอกจากนี้งานวิจัยนี้ได้ชี้ให้เห็นว่าตลาดทุนไทยกำลังอยู่ในช่วงของการเปลี่ยนผ่านจากการรายงานที่เน้นเฉพาะข้อมูลทางการเงินไปสู่การรายงานที่คำนึงถึงความยั่งยืนมากขึ้นแต่การเปลี่ยนผ่านดังกล่าวยังไม่สมบูรณ์นะคะจำเป็นต้องได้รับการสนับสนุนจากภาครัฐและหน่วยงานที่เกี่ยวข้องในประเด็นด้านมาตรฐานการรายงานการกำกับดูแลเรื่องสิทธิมนุษยชนและความสอดคล้องของข้อมูลระหว่างสองภาษาสุดท้ายนี้หากท่านใดมีประเด็นคำถามที่เกี่ยวข้องหรือข้อเสนอแนะสามารถส่งมาได้ที่ทาง ThaiBMA นะคะจะได้นำไปปรับปรุงเพิ่มเติมการศึกษาให้มีความสมบูรณ์มากยิ่งขึ้นและหากท่านใดสนใจที่จะศึกษาในรายละเอียดของงานวิจัยชิ้นนี้ต้องรออีกนิดนะคะเกือบจะสำเร็จเรียบร้อยนะคะเมื่อผลงานเรียบร้อยแล้วก็จะมีการเผยแพร่ทางเว็บไซต์ของ ThaiBMA แล้วก็ ThaiBMA ต่อไปนะคะและของทางเว็บไซต์ของ CMDF และ ThaiBMA ค่ะ สุดท้ายนี้ขอขอบคุณทาง CMDF อีกครั้งนะคะที่ให้ทุนสนับสนุนการศึกษานี้และหวังว่าจะเป็นประโยชน์ต่อผู้ร่วมตลาดนะคะขอบคุณค่ะ
ขอบพระคุณนะคะ Professor Shunsuke Managi จาก aiESG และที่เมื่อสักครู่นี้นะคะคุณศิรินาถอมรธรรมนะคะผู้อำนวยการอาวุโสฝ่ายวิจัยและวิเทศสัมพันธ์ของ ThaiBMA ค่ะขอบพระคุณทั้งสองท่านค่ะค่ะต่อเนื่องกันอีกหนึ่งมุมมองนะคะเพื่อให้เราเข้าใจในมุมมองของสถาบันการจัดอันดับเครดิตนะคะต่อการประเมินและการระดมทุนผ่านการเงินเพื่อการเปลี่ยนผ่านหรือ Climate Transition Finance ได้อย่างรอบด้านมากขึ้นนะคะขออนุญาตเป็นหัวข้อต่อไปกันเลยนะคะขออนุญาตต้อนรับคุณ Bertrand Jabouley นะคะจาก S&P Global Ratings Agency ค่ะขอเสียงปรบมือต้อนรับค่ะ
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for staying after this amazing lunch, which was probably more the highlight of the day than at least this presentation from me. We've been talking about the definition of transition finance. We have been hearing, regulators, bankers, issuers, and what that means. I just want to add the perspective of service provider, S&P Global Ratings, on how to look at it in practice. I will also briefly cover the difference between ESG ratings and transition finance and sustainability-linked instruments and transition instruments as per our friend and host ThaiBMA request. So, as you can tell, it's going to be a very simple presentation. We're not talking about artificial intelligence, but about very basic concepts with a key question. So far, transition finance, that's really the apple, right? And usually the pointer is almost as big as the apple, because when you're looking at numbers, in the past 5 years, transition bonds are 3% of sustainable bonds globally. Sustainability-linked instruments, they've been just losing steam, and that's only 2%. So, besides, again, the lunch, have we been wasting our time today discussing about transition? I don't think so. But first, I have an agenda. I know this is my job. This is how I'm feeding my children, and they eat a lot. But second, I think we've seen really two very critical developments in the market. First, an acceleration of regulatory commitment to transition. I think Thailand is a very good example of that. We saw the taxonomy in 23. We saw the Climate Act. There is the ongoing consultation around transition bond. You have also some subsidies to help issuers access the market. So there is a strong commitment from authorities to support transition. And in addition, today we have principles, sustainable finance principles set by independent bodies like the ICMA, the LMA. So you have a framework and you have a supportive context. And for that reason, hopefully over time, the apple will become a pumpkin. So now I just want to explain to you how to look at transition projects. I will be mentioning 3 names: PTTEP, Siam Cement, and IGAT. I hope they have no representative here to check what I'm going to say about them, but just my point is that what I'm going to say is based on public information, so don't expect any brownie points or red flags attributed to any of those important companies. Right, so this is the framework to assess transition finance. It's really about vision, action, and governance. So that's really the why. The why, that this is the strategy. The what, the project, the how, the governance. And we will cover each of them. There is one of those American development futurist people, they have white teeth and you have their glossy books. His name is Joel Barker, but he said something which I think is quite interesting and resonates. He says that vision without action it's a dream. Action without a vision is just passing time. And action and vision, they can change the world. And hopefully they will when it comes to transition. So let's start with the vision. You need targets to access the market. Arguably today, you cannot tap the transition finance opportunities without at least a nominal commitment to net zero by 2050. We know that many technologies are still developing, are still uneconomical, so de facto no one has the technical and economical solutions to reach net zero by 2050 without relying too much on carbon offsets. Yet, you need those commitments, long-term commitments, while transition finance will be focusing on nearer-term commitments, typically in the next 5 and 7 years. You need a roadmap, serving those are actions contributing to set the vision into motion, right? And here, again, what will be most important are the actions in the near term rather than the longer term. But at this stage of the analysis, you're not yet looking really at the deep feasibility and the carbon impact of the project. Instead, you are looking really more at the sequence of things and to what extent it's logical and credible. Governance, it's about steering, right? As the poem say, oh, captain, my captain, you need a captain, you need crew, you need governance, right? And this one is obviously extremely critical because in untested spaces like transition finance, track record is extremely important because we will see that we will be making assumptions. Everything is not clear-cut. So it's a lot about understanding really people's aspiration and having faith into their track record. So, Siam Cement. Here, it's not about validating their strategy. Just want to be extremely clear with that. It's more saying, do we have everything in place at first glance? Yes, you have targets, right? So I was mentioning the importance of having this 2050 commitment. They do that. Nearer term, you have targets contributing to set the vision into motion. By 2030, they want to reduce their direct emissions by 25%. And they have this mission statement around carbon footprint, nature, and society. Then actions. This is where industry expertise is quite important, obviously. Because what is really critical in cement is the chemistry behind the clinker, right? That the calcination of limestones, this is where all the energy and the emissions are coming from, right? Hence, it's important to understand that the most critical part of their roadmap is CCUS, right? So that's the second layer of the actions. They are industry specific, they are relevant to the context of this organization. So they could be ticking the boxes. Governance. Governance, it's always easier when companies are listed because then you have many, many disclosures. And here, when it comes to governance, what you want to focus on is the sustainability governance. Do you have sustainability committees? Where within the organization is the board equipped to understand well the transition strategy and to steer it, right? And how the company communicates also. And I was talking about the record of hitting targets. So that's really the first step, understanding the vision, the actions serving the vision, and who is in charge. Then, here I'm switching here, I'm talking about EGAT. That's really the second layer of the analysis is really understanding the project. So here, I will not comment specifically on what IGAT has in mind, right? If only because renewable energy and grid modernization, those are typically more green projects than transition projects. What I will comment on is what you see on the right-hand side, and those concepts are really critical to assess project. First, you have to trust that there is no carbon alternatives. What does that mean? It means that either you don't have a green technology currently available, or that is just too expensive. Because at the end of the day, we are talking about sustainable finance, right? We are talking about funds serving companies which want to make their living, right? So there is this structural element of profitability underlying all their sustainable undertakings, right? Then you have taxonomies and pathways. This one is the tricky part, essentially. We've been talking, about the still developing and expanding Thai taxonomies. This is one. You have about 20 such taxonomies in APAC, so you can choose which one is more relevant to your context. And you have also, what are those pathways? Those pathways are typically scenarios put together for an industry by, I would say, a recognized independent body. A famous one is the International Energy Agency, for instance. They have those so-called pathways for power, for steel, for cement. So for instance, for cement, they are telling you that by 2030, the ratio of clinker should be below 68% for the global industry compared to 71% today. They are telling you that by 2030, for power, renewable energy generation should triple. Doesn't seem too realistic today. So it's not about being that realistic. It's about saying what needs to happen for the world to achieve the vision of the Paris Agreement. And it's critical to have those frameworks in mind because you will be assessing the project a company wants to finance against those frameworks. And a third one that is extremely important could be the NDCs, because we appreciate that sustainability is typically context-specific, if only because there is just so much a company, a nation can invest in its decarbonization journey. The carbon impact and the fossil fuel safeguards, simply put, they shouldn't be carbon lock-in. So in simpler terms, you shouldn't be building projects that will be generating a lot of carbon emissions in the foreseeable future and for many years, right? Here we are back to the concept of financial reality. If you are building today a gas power station which is not ready for blending with say, green ammonia, for instance, where you cannot plug at some point some carbon capture systems, you are locking emissions because it's a long-term asset. It will be operating for 30 years, right? This is one. And second, how do plans compare to business as usual? It's not about replacing a boiler because the boiler is reaching its end of useful life. This is totally business as usual. So there is this fundamental concept of stretching a bit your muscles and trying to go the extra mile. So there is really this concept of sweat, right? So to speak, of effort, which is very fundamental. And so this is really against those four considerations that you should be looking at all transition projects. And then transparency is key. Now, when I was a pupil many years ago, my parents forced me to take Latin, right? But at least the good thing is that then I can show off with some Latin proverbs, right? The one being, which is quite famous, scripta manent verbat volunt. What does that mean? It means that words said, they fly away. What is written stays. So we are looking about public commitments, clearly put in writing. We are after companies being part of coalitions. So companies clearly demonstrating publicly their commitment to transition. Why? Because if they are essentially betting their reputation. So then if they don't execute on well-publicized goals, then that could potentially damage their reputation. And this is why transparency is extremely important when you're looking at transition, because that's really the glue binding everything together, essentially. So summing up the process, you had only 3 slides, but I'm trying to be helpful here. So it's really about having a credible vision, having clear, quantified capital commitments, at least in the near term, serving this vision, and being highly committed to transparency, to explain what you are up to, later on to report on your progress, on potential challenges, and so forth and so on. Fundamentally, from my point of view, I've been in this game for many years. Many failed transactions can be explained by lack of communication, lack of storytelling, but storytelling in the good and noble sense of the term, taking the time to explain yourself, to explain your aspirations, to explain the challenges and hence the risks of not meeting your vision. That, for instance, you remember that Enel, they were the champion of sustainability-linked bonds, right, for many years. They failed to meet one of their targets 18 months ago. You had good reasons, disruptions of gas supply because of the situation between Russia and Ukraine and so forth and so on. So long story short, they turned a failure into a great sustainability story. Because we've been hearing a lot, I don't want to do it because I'm afraid to fail, but I think failure can be actually very supportive of companies' reputations if properly explained. So that's really it for transition. Just briefly, I want to cover ESG ratings and sustainability instruments because I'm on a mission here and our friend of ThaiBMA asked me to do it. And just want to stress the complexity of both instruments. I think they can serve greatly strategic purposes of company. The complexity of sustainability instruments is that you have to explain the KPIs, why you selected them, why they are relevant to your industry. That may be obvious, maybe not. And obviously you have to explain why the targets you want to achieve are ambitious and cannot be taken for granted. The beauty of those instruments is that it's general corporate purpose financing, meaning that companies that can do whatever they wish with the proceeds. Conversely, transition, you have a list of projects which you have to finance, yet the reporting is much, much easier and flexible. But the complexity stems from this pathway you assess your projects and your decarbonization trend against, as I was explaining. But I really think that both instruments, they can serve their purpose well. It's also important to stress that sustainability-linked instruments are not necessarily only about carbon emissions. Today, to be fair, 75% of all sustainability-linked instruments are related to carbon emissions. But it still means that you have 25% relation to waste, to water, to safety, and the likes. Then, just want to explore the relationship between ESG ratings and transition finance. So, if I'm transitioning well, is it necessarily positive from our ESG rating? The answer is yes or no. I'm taking the example of PTTEP here. So they have those three strategic pillars: drive, decarbonize, and diversify. Drive, it's about ensuring the reliability of their operations. So as the President of the United States would elegantly put it, it's maybe drill, baby, drill. Decarbonize, they have objectives to reduce their direct emissions by 30% by 2030 and 50% by 2040. So they have this commitment. And diversify, they want to explore new energy pathways to reduce their exposure to oil and gas. Still early days for their decarbonization. But then what is the relationship between early days and the 62? The 62, you see, is the S&P Global Market Intelligence ESG score. But what is important to understand is that it captures environment, social, and governance, right? You have a questionnaire about 130 questions. You have about 1,000 data points. So long story short, GHG emissions may well be a small portion or not that meaningful a portion of the 62 score. So decarbonization is obviously beneficial to an ESG rating, but the sensitivity of the ESG rating to decarbonization may be limited depending on the weightings and other methodological assumptions. Last slide. Just want why put this slide together and stating the obvious. Actually, I just want to focus on agriculture. The key message here being that obviously all the economic backbone of Thailand is energy intensive, right? We are talking about the petrochemical and the oil and gas complex. We are talking about building materials and transport. Yet it's interesting to see that rice paddies actually account for 7 to 8% of the country's total GHG emissions. And you have this interesting technology of alternate wetting and drying, which means essentially drying the field from time to time to avoid all the methane emissions, right? And doing that can reduce rice paddies emissions by up to 50%. So it's obviously not a presentation on agriculture, and I don't have really the competencies, but I just wanted to highlight that decarbonization opportunities are everywhere, and they extend much beyond the famously known as highly exposed or hard to abate sectors. Thank you very much for your time.
ขอขอบพระคุณคุณเบอร์ทรอนด์ ชาโบเร่จาก S&P ขอโทษค่ะจาก S&P Global Ratings ค่ะ